Hi, this is acting teacher Michael Bean, and this is your free lesson for myfreeactingclass.com. This is the last week of our 8-week spring session. We started with 6. We finished with strong with like 3 who could come every week, but it's because Dia was in India working on stuff, and Danielle was in New York working on stuff, and Shoku, had like practical life things. So uh, really excited to share everybody's work with you today and to do some reflections on it. I've pulled some historical tapes from Duke and Alex and Christina because all 3 of them have been taking lessons, these lessons, the free ones, for a while. Yeah, and I have some tapes that they submitted even a couple of years ago in some cases. And so it'll be fun to show some little clips of that. And Christina's making a very embarrassed face right now, but I promise I'm not going to embarrass anybody. We talked about this a bunch in the last lesson, but this idea that there is a steep jump right at the beginning where you're getting sort of initial concepts. Right. So if the horizontal here is time, then there's like an initial pop of like, boom, you're going to get a lot better pretty quick. And that then actually there's this entire process of starting to think about it and analyze it and pull it apart in order to continue to improve, right? So it's like, boom, it peaks, or it hits this like, big jump from nothing pretty quick, and then you're like, oh, now it's kind of working, but I now have to keep thinking about it and pull it apart more. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm watching the tape and I can see myself thinking about it and just doing it. And then it's okay, I'm slowly practicing the things, and now I'm seeing less thinking and less thinking and less thinking. Oh, and now it's as good as it was, after the first 45 minutes, and from there I'm going to like keep working on it. And so I think that that's true for any individual scene that you're working on. It's also true for the longer arc of getting good at something. And I think that Shoku's work is a fantastic example of that. So she's not able to join us here for this lesson, but I made a real point in the early lessons of being like, thank you so much for being willing to be incredibly brave and show up, even though this is completely new. You literally actually are telling me that you know nothing about how to act on camera. And so we talked in the first lesson about kind of some basic technical things. And she sent this tape at the very beginning, which I'm going to show you right now.
You have a copy. Who is it? And asking, she says it's urgent. Tell her I didn't. Okay. I'm sorry, ma'am, but listen.
So you can tell that this is work from somebody who's like, okay, it's not nothing, right? She's in the center of the frame mostly, but the pacing, the delivery, the lighting, there's a lot of technical things that she was still working on. And it was only a matter of, I think, 4 weeks, between, that was May 3rd, is that date was taped, or that tape was dated. And then here's a tape from May 31st, and so this is just after submitting, I think, 4 different tapes and workshopping them in class.
This is really how he usually does it? Okay. How about if you give me a vocabulary? I'm serious. Test me. See how I do. Okay. Imbibe means drink, which whether or not.
Okay, so the first tape is like, this is clearly somebody who is just practicing for the first time. The tape that you just saw, you could submit that for an audition. and if she was right for it in terms of like she looks right for it, it doesn't have some kind of like unexpected emotional arc where they're going to ask more from than we saw there. They could be like, yeah, you know what? That's the hair we need. That's the accent we need. That's the face we need. The basic competence pieces of like she's occurring like a real person are there. And that's just a matter of 4 weeks trajectory. And so then going into more complex work, and we're going to review the tapes sort of in order of like how long folks have been in the game, which I think is for me is sort of a fun way to look at it. So we're going to look at Christina's work, because Christina's still finishing high school. We're going to look at Alex's work because Alex, is just kind of a couple of years into like acting. Yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And it's just been like pouring life energy into it in the way that, like represent for the 20 somethings of the world. Like, oh man, I respect you. I'm not there anymore, but like, oof, love that. Fire and attack, kill it. And then Duke, who's closer to my age, and it's like, yeah, I did a bunch of theater and then transitioning into film. What do I do? But like was coming in, with more years of practice and then just sort of transitioning mediums as much as anything. Yeah, and so the shape of that. Now, Dia, whose phone may die, and so has been basically too busy working for the last couple of weeks to actively participate in the sessions. So like, yeah, right on. Just let us know that the tape that we reviewed here in class, where she was doing all this improv and it was very charactery, and then she had a callback for it, where there was less improv, that she booked that role, which is really exciting. And another great example of me bringing a tape to class and going like, okay, we can always pull it apart. It doesn't matter how good it is. We can always go like, let's think about these things and what can they teach us about technical skills. And she booked it. She booked it. The tape doesn't have to be perfect to book it. It's fine. The pacing was weird. Who cares? They didn't care. Maybe there's too much caring about the details. There's right. Yeah, she says, I took your notes. It definitely helped. I fixed the pacing for the callback. But you got the callback with the thing, and maybe the pacing. That's great that you played with it. I think that's useful for you. That may not be the thing that got you the callback. Probably you booked it because you walked in and they were like, yes. Yep, we like her as an artist, as a person. She's the right fit for the character. Who cares what comes out of her mouth? Could easily have been that way too, right? So it's everything that you've done before that moment where you walk in the room, contributes to booking the job. Yes, pulling apart the tapes I think is useful, and I just want to bring in, which is before we get into pulling apart the tapes today, the limitations of this process, and that we are not looking for perfect. We are just looking for process. We're looking for like, oh, right, my trajectory over time is to stay engaged in what am I learning? What can I learn? What's interesting to me? What keeps me exploring it? Yeah, and any individual tape will literally never, ever be perfect. I have truly seen actors who are 20 years more skilled and experienced than me, whose work I think is astounding, watch their tapes and go like, I'm not doing so good. That's right. The fantasy that it will ever be possible to like watch one's work and not see ways in which it could improve. Probably this is not a thing that's going to happen. Do you want? Is there anything that you want to jump in and say or ask? Because I know you said that your phone is going to die quite soon. Before we jump into reviewing Christina's tapes.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add that the pacing, and like I've noticed with my tapes, you start up and sometimes it's just the smallest thing that I think you have an eye for, or someone that isn't you can sometimes tell you. And I think the pacing definitely, it added to the character. And even now on set, one of the notes that I've been told from the director was the pacing, because it was the character couldn't be fine, but if the pacing is off, you know, and these are things that I, as an actor, was not like, I'm just thinking about the character. I'm not really thinking about, oh, okay, yeah, she should be like this, or she should be like that. So the note that I've even gotten on set is in the same thing, that he liked the pacing, and it was your note for me as well that I really took into the callback. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you, thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Let us celebrate for you. That's exciting. Okay, let's jump into Christina's work. So this is a tape. So Christina is, I don't know if you remember from the tutorial from last week, but again, here is this graph, that, what I was really trying to say last week, is the red line, or this idea refined itself in teaching it. So last week I was like, the red line is like how good you think you are, but it's not really it. The red line is how much you know, and how much you know is generally a linear progression, right? Like it's just good. It gets better over time. You're going to know more and more and more, but the gap between them is how good you think you are, right? So so Christina, right at the beginning, like I think before I have any of the self tapes, was here. She was like, oh God, like I know nothing and I suck. And then like she got some really basic competence, but she still was very convinced that she was, not good. And so what we're going to look at here, is a tape that's actually like, this is from about a year ago. And it's a tape that's quite, no, actually, this is from 2 years ago. So this is Christina's tape from April 2021. And the faces Christina was making at the top of this lesson can tell me that like she's convinced that it completely sucks. And what you'll see is that like the basic competence is really there, and that is at this point is just refining that has happened in the last couple of years. That and her bangs growing out, which is probably the thing that you will notice the most. Honestly, like let's be real about what do people see when they look at something. They're like, oh, bangs versus no bangs, and then they're like, oh, right, I'm supposed to be looking at acting. Right, that's why you don't have anything in the background, because if you do, then people are like, I'm trying to listen to Michael Biehn, but like, ooh, what's down that hallway over there? That's, let's be real about like where people's attention goes. And one of the things that we're doing with our self tapes is we are selectively playing with controlling people's attention. So April 2021. And it's very small because it's like a recording of a Zoom session that she did with someone. Note the bangs. Okay, now let's be over the bangs and go on to like thinking about the work.
Why do we celebrate them dying?
We're not celebrating, we're honoring them. It's our responsibility.
Mom and dad don't even know they're doing it. Anyway, happy birthday.
You too.
I didn't get you anything.
Right, so in terms of basic competence, it's there. Christina, like it looks good. The eye lines are solid. Like at that point you'd been sort of sitting in or watching these lessons for a while, and so like the shape of it is there. Like we'd even workshopped a couple of things live. Yes, is it like maybe the reactions, even though they're coming across honest, there are these sort of like gaps, right? The sort of thinking gaps or the pauses where it's like, now the next thing. And so it comes across just a little bit performative because it's not yet kind of tied together. And I think I reflected this back to you at the time, that at the time it seemed to me like your attention was on yourself. That you were like, how am I feeling? What is it? Faces that making? How does that show up in my voice? And that I don't know if you remember, this tape is one that you did with Candy, who was one of the students in class. And that was an exercise in getting you out of your head and into like pay attention to the other person. And I would say that like was quite effective. And then you just kept exploring that, right? So this is you from the start of the session here, right? So this was May 3rd. And so this is just over 2 years after the previous tape.
Told you I'd find them. Jordan, what is it?
I don't understand what happened to you and Dad.
Oh, honey.
Look how happy you two are here. It wasn't that long ago.
Do you remember that time we built a snowman?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you'll see much more alive in the spaces in between your lines. Much more subtlety in terms of your moment-to-moment expression, right? So rather than thinking about this is the face I'm making, or having any of your attention on that, I would say that in this one, it looks like you're keeping on bringing your attention to like what's out there, and connecting to that. And so what's happening is your face is shifting in subtle ways without you having to think, now I will shift or show it on purpose, right? So we're seeing more of the subtlety. And I think that the attention on self was a necessary part of the process, and just not where you wanted to end up. But like think about how bad you were beating yourself up 2 years ago, where you were just like, oh yes, you're right, my attention's on myself, I'm doing it completely wrong. It's like, well, look, of course your attention's on yourself, you're trying to get better here. We're like what else are you going to pay attention to? Come on, like let's be real, you do actually have to know where you're standing, where you're looking, like these are important things to pay attention to. And let's work with the system and get your attention out. And then here is the tape from this week. So this is at 8 weeks in, and Christina's been very consistent about sending tapes each week. So 21 June 2023.
Hey, Dylan.
Hey,
Here.
thanks.
I hear you may not be staying here much longer.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's expensive, and I hear there's some money stuff.
We going home? Wow.
Yeah, but if you still want to be friends, I'll still be your friend. I mean, there's cars and all.
Of course. Are you for real with this? This is fantastic.
Hey, listen, I gotta go. Don't tell anybody what I heard, okay?
Sure. Hey, take care. You don't have to leave so fast.
Okay, so listening, subtlety, are there ways that we could like get into the story and make it more alive? For sure, like, but the so much progress from April 2021 there, Christina. And so I hope that you can see that. If we're gonna workshop the scene today, then really I would just be looking for those moments of change, right? The moment of like testing the guy where you're like, hey, so I hear you have to go. Do you love me? Do you love me? Like, is this, are you sad because you now you're going to have to like go away from me? And he's like, what? Yeah, I'm out of here forever. And then you can be like, okay, great. Just me having the huge crush then. Just gonna go be sad by myself because you suck, because you don't care about me. Thanks. Bye forever. So right, that finding those moments of like, and I saw there was a little bit of context in the script, and so I saw the like vulnerability there. I saw the crush; it was alive. I saw the like hurt feels at the end. I think it would just be going through and finding those moments in the script where you're testing him, and you and you, the character, don't know yet which way it's going to go. Right? That the especially when you get sad scenes, you get so excited about them that you just want to make them sad all the way through. And if this one had the hope that like, yeah, this is his chance to tell you that he likes you so that then you can be in love even when he's far away, if the hope is there too, it would just give us more dynamism and make it more alive. Right. But all of this is just evidence of the main thing of like, there's always ways we can pull it apart. That's the game. Can we be in it and surf the wave, and know that we're never going to hit the wave perfectly? That analyzing the tape later to go like, how was that wave and could I have positioned it? Like that's a useful exercise. But imagining that you can both do the work, surf the wave, while also analyzing it as you do it, it's an illusion. it's not possible to do both jobs and do them both well simultaneously, in my opinion. What stands out for you looking at the tapes there, Christina? Besides the bangs.
I I think it'd be growth. Because when I first started, as you said, I was very focused on myself. But as I kept on doing it, I started focusing more on the story of the skit that you're acting out. Sometimes I still do make mistakes and I'm like focusing on myself. But I think the growth of like having to learn to like focus on the person you're like talking to and understanding them as well has been like a major change that I've seen, that I've been like more like all rounded, instead of just
Mhm.
one dimensional.
And then what's
Mhm.
been alive for you in the last 8 weeks? Because you've really been putting focused attention in for the spring session in the last 8 weeks. And so uh, what what stands out for you? What's alive for you when you think about like, what have I been working on? What have I been learning in these last 8 weeks? Even if it's just something
For,
that you're uh, actively practicing or interested in continuing to practice.
I think for me, it'd be the facial expressions. Like I remember when you first told me, like in the beginning, I'd be like, "Huh, what did that happen?" But you don't have to do it. It's all in those micro reactions. It's just if you listen to the person and you just have like a normal reaction, you'll be able to see it. The camera's like so up close to you. And another thing I think you've also taught me is like camera presence. It's like you can be more. I've learned to be more comfortable on the camera these last 8 weeks. So for me, a major takeaway. Oh, one more. Is also
Do it.
improvisation. Improvisation before your scene is so helpful. Like just getting in, because I know when you just start the scene, it can be very shallow, right? But if you have that improvisation before, it helps you take you to a deeper level of your scene. So facial reactions, micro reactions, and improvisation beforehand, super helpful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Christina. And folks, if you have reflections on Christina's work, or specific things that stood out for you, please throw them in the chat window, even though we are going to move on to review Alex's work. So the Alex, has been like, I don't know, Alex, for whatever reason in my archives, the first tape that you sent me that I have saved, was April 2022. And I don't remember if you were coming to lessons before that, but that's the one that I'm going to show right now. And what's great is that that one was also a monologue. So Alex has been very interested in monologues lately. Obviously, like dialogue, there are advantages to both. Dialogue, I think, is great for giving you the opportunity to like really put your focus outside of yourself, but it also requires somebody else. And one of the best things about monologues is you're like, yeah, it's 3 a.m. and I'm here alone and I want to do some acting, and then you just can't, because you only need yourself for it, and the other person and their reactions are imaginary, and so you can keep playing with that every day. So highly recommend doing this thing Alex is doing and exploring monologues as a way of inviting an opportunity to practice when you feel like it, without having to juggle as much logistics. And then I think working with other people when you can, as you can, is also very helpful. So here is Alex's monologue from April 2022.
Hello, my name is Thomas and I have a message. Please listen carefully because I am going to tell you once. Yes, you are brave. Yes, you are smart. Yes, you are good looking, and yes, you can steal their money. You're all of those things. Till you hear a knock on your door. You're now going to ask me how you feel. It's not going to be pleasant. In that specific moment, you're a nobody. You're more than a nobody. You don't.
And then, as the monologue goes on, he gets into this like very sort of performative, like, and now I'm really tough. And so but you can see that like the shape of it is there, Alex, right? Like you're still, you're setting it up, for camera, right? Uh, the listening to it now, I can hear that your voice is up, right? Can you hear that your voice is up part of an octave? So your voice is just higher and lighter than it normally is. And at that point, you just were not able to hear that, right? That was not something that you could adjust in real time. That's just what it looks and sounds like when somebody's excited. So anybody watching the tape, like honestly, if you go back and watch your own early tapes, if you're literally anyone, regardless of your age, you'll notice that. It's the kind of thing that just says, oh, nervous system is jacked a little bit, whether it's excitement or anxiety or like whatever it is, happens to literally everybody. It takes time to be able to like hear it and bring it down. And so what you'll see in the monologue from Jay is similar to Christina's, a lot more nuance, right? Is it wildly different, the way that Shoku's were? No, like is it, however, substantially more alive? Yes, absolutely. And for me, that's the process that takes you from like kind of basic competence to work that is professionally viable. Because of course, work that's professionally viable, they needs to look easeful for the performer. Even if, or maybe even especially if they're doing something that is in some way charged. So if that was April, here is today. Or that was April of 2022, here is today, 2023.
So how's your day?
And aside from the fact that like his lighting is way better, so he looks way prettier, you're like, wow, has Alex just gotten like way prettier since then? And it's like, oh no, his lighting is way prettier. So just like everybody clock this, you're like, huh, really, Michael Biehn? Is it though? And then look at this. Okay, old one and new one. Same person. Yes, this is sort of more alive and nuanced, but lighting makes such a huge difference in our felt sense of, oh, this person's work is like viable in terms of it like being pretty, like being interesting. We're just so used to seeing very well lit work when we watch TV and movies that I think it is something visual that impacts us emotionally that most folks are absolutely not aware of. Lighting. It's also, of course, like he's zoomed in a little bit closer even, anyway, so he's cleaned up some technical stuff, but that one is, I think, biggest for me watching it. Back to the beginning so we can actually watch the work. Here it is.
So how's your day? Yeah? Listen. Listen. It's great to meet you, really. You're a very attractive girl, but I should tell you right off the bat. This is not going anywhere. It's not you, it's me. You seem like a really sweet girl, and I don't want you to get hurt. You know what I mean? I know we just met like 3 minutes ago, but you're probably looking for someone to get serious with. Someone with potential. Someone who will take you out to eat a few times. See a movie. Fool around a little bit. Next thing you know, we are getting a dog and we're moving in. And that's not me. You want to come inside and have some chicken fingers? Awesome. But the other stuff, I got to tell you up front. She's not ready. I liked this girl. Loved her even. And what did she do?
Yeah, and so the work is there's a lot more nuance showing up here. So even if we just like zoom in on this bit about the chicken fingers, look at the micro expressions that Christina was talking about when she was reflecting on her work.
Awesome. But the other stuff, some chicken fingers. Awesome. But the other stuff,
Right.
I got to
Right.
tell you,
Change. Micro expression. Feeling. Looks like a feeling. Changes again. Changes again. Changes again. Right. That if we can see somebody planning those expressions, then honestly, we typically lose them, and we're not seeing him plan that. So if we were going to workshop this tape, Alex, then I would go into probably dropping your voice. Like I do think listening to the tape that it's a little bit up here, and that even if that's like really true for your sense of like, well, this is just where the character is at, or that's just sort of like the way it landed on me when I was there. If because it stays there, we're just losing a little bit of the nuance, right? So Duke just made a comment in the chat about the movement, and he's absolutely right. The movement looks really natural. Those micro expressions are really working. Yeah, I would say that if we drop your voice into your body at least partway through, and the way that I would typically approach that as a coach is to go like, okay, let's get into the relationship with the person you're talking to, and and make it hotter one way or the other. Like, what do you want her to do or feel, and that sort of objective and obstacle. Right, and maybe the obstacle is like how attractive she is, or maybe maybe it's on completely on the other side. And what you really want is her, to like put her down so that you can feel better about yourself. Like, there's lots of different ways to do it, but I basically think if we just, okay, great, like you got the shape of this, now let's turn up the volume and let's explore what's going to make you care more about landing this on her, because right now it's this particular monologue, it's all a little bit back here. Yeah, here's the thing. And so it's like, okay, and so looking at it as a coach, I'm like, yep, it's there, but I don't understand why you're saying this to her, or like, can we make it more important to land it on her, either by figuring out the strong feeling or opinion about the person you're talking to, or what you want them to do or feel. And so that's where I would go with this monologue. And yeah, I know you want that because you're just going to keep playing with monologues because that's your jam. So when you come back to this monologue, look for that. Because I think when you find that, then even though you're imagining those little moment-to-moment reactions of hers, once those get more clear, that will feed your work as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For this specific monologue, I was like, my thing was, she is ugly and I don't like her, so that's why I was moving back in like terms to, I want to leave, and saying it's not your fault, it's my fault that we can work this thing out.
Great.
I don't know.
In that case, there's not enough obstacle, right? If your objective is I want to leave, and there's no stakes, well, then why are you gone? Why aren't you gone? Why are you still there talking to her, right? So there's some reason that you're telling her all of these things, even if it's just like, I'm going to use you because you're ugly and I don't like you to vent all of my problems with the relationship or anything. But like I'm not saying the objective is wrong. I'm saying if we want to turn up the volume, if we want to make it more important, we have to ask the question like, well, why aren't you just gone? If you want to leave, why haven't you left? Why don't you just close the door? And there's some reason that's not happening. Either because like she's very nice and you don't want to make her feel bad, and then it's about her feelings again, or because you are just selfishly processing stuff and using her as an outlet for it, which again gives a reason to be there. But like, if you keep working the monologue, just think about like, okay, the piece that's clear to me is like not into it. And so then if that's the case, well, what's happening in this conversation then?
I see. Yeah. So basically, yeah, wrapping up the stakes. Go.
Yeah, that's where I would go in terms of exploring how to ramp up the stakes. And my guess is that when you found something that was really personal and alive there, it would help land you in your body. So when you're exploring it, I would suggest do one where you are trying to make her feel bad, where you're just like, you suck. My words are saying nice things, but I want you to run away and be really clear that I don't want you to eat chicken fingers because I never want to look at your horrible, ugly face again. Like right? Do that one where you're just like absolutely an ass. And then when you're exploring, and then try one where you're like, oh God, like you're so nice that I can't tell you that I don't find you attractive because I just can't do it because you're so nice. Oh God, but really like hideously unattractive to me, but also, no, it's definitely about me. We're clear it's about you, right? Right. So you're trying to like get rid of her without making her feel bad, raise the stakes again about her, right? So I would first explore the first one, then explore the second one. Then I would say explore the third one where you are so upset about your ex that anybody who will hold still for 10 seconds, you're just like, let me work out my relationship drama from my ex because you're looking at me and will listen until you run away from how much of a mess I am. And again, then you've got like a reason to sort of use her in the monologue. Now, for anybody watching, do any three of these make him a nice person? No, probably not. Nuh-uh. Those are the most interesting people to watch often in in drama, because they're going to get themselves in trouble, where we're like, oh yeah, he's like a nice person, but also elements of deep selfishness, and here's his stuff. Alex, is there anything in particular that stands out for you, sort of looking at the tape from a year ago and the tape from now, and like what stands out for you looking at it?
There are two things. One is camera presence, like Christina said, actually understanding that I don't have to act for the camera. I just have to act for the person in front of me, and the camera will catch my feelings, my expressions. And also playing with nuances, adding more details in my work subconsciously to make the work more alive, adding feelings and opinions basically on every single thought or line that I say, rather than just having a whole opinion about the whole thing and just play that through the entire stuff. Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
And then in the last 8 weeks, what's been most alive or interesting for you?
In the last 8 weeks, I was playing with drama and comedy. And for drama, I would say is subconscious work, trying to have a neutral, try to learn the character and the lines neutral as possible, so I can have a blanket to put color on.
Mm-hmm.
And for comedies, understanding that those characters are having a life, and it's not actually funny what they say, it's just the unexpected reaction moment or whatever they say for the audience to make it funny.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. And again, folks are already throwing stuff in the chat window, but if there's anything that you want to sort of add or reflect back to Alex, please feel free to throw it there. Let's move on to reviewing Duke's work. And Duke, am I right, in remembering that you had a bunch of theater sort of before you started exploring film? Like that theater is something that you had explored, for quite a while before getting into that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yes, that's how I got into acting,
Perfect.
basically, on stage.
And so here is a tape of Duke's from November 2021. So here's 18 months ago.
Hey, kiddo, I got something for you.
Are you suggesting next time I believe I just shank someone?
That would definitely be effective. Your mom means a lot to me. You mean a lot to her. My dad wasn't the nicest, but it meant a lot that he passed this down to me, so I want to do the same.
Okay, so that's Duke 18 months ago, right? It's set up. You've got he's got the shape of it there. Duke is just interesting to look at, right? You're like, oh yeah, okay, like a guy, I get character right away. He's not having to work at it. So as an acting teacher looking at it, I'm like, oh, what's happening is there's a pattern here in reviewing, kind of all the old tapes, but particularly Christina's, because Christina was doing dialogue, Duke was doing dialogue, which is just there's those pauses kind of in between things that aren't full, where it's like, okay, it reads a little bit performative to me as an acting teacher, because it looks to me like there are these gaps, and they're not long gaps, right? This isn't somebody who's just like starting fresh. There's just that little bit of space before, after, that aren't quite full yet, where it's not connected to that other person in a way that would give those reactions and gives the micro expressions. And so it reads a little bit performative. Also, Duke had this wonderful reflection a couple of weeks ago in one of the lessons, we were working on a scene where I was like, this smile here looks like you're holding it on purpose, and Duke, I don't know if you can see, but it looks to me like that's really present in, at least in this tape, the 2011 tape. And again, it's not huge. It's just like the real expression is there, and then it's like you're holding it on purpose, as opposed to like trusting it to move, and that's something that that you're not going to see in the tape that we watched from today, right? So like a point of growth here. Also, like I've really been on Duke about his lighting, and it's gotten progressively better. So you'll see that in the tapes as well. So here's Duke from May 2022.
Camp David, the president wants to see both of you.
Right, so lighting's better. This one, is SOC. So he doesn't have dialogue in that one. I'm just skipping the slate at the end. This is just like a little pop from my archive. From partway through. His reader's a little bit louder than him. That's something that he's corrected here. But there isn't a lot of sort of performative emotion showing in this tape, right? Like I'm not seeing that, here. And then there's today's, and Duke explicitly wanted to work on vulnerability, over these last 8 weeks, and we got to see a couple of scenes where he really dived into that. And then this last one is something that's more procedural. It's like Duke, the FBI agent, and the challenge that I offered was like, I know this isn't the kind of vulnerability that really like is calling to you as an artist right now. Are there ways where even in something that is small, where we have these reactions, where we can see the benefit of that vulnerability without, the scene being explicitly about that, or like sort of doing the deep dive all the way in, and so here is Duke from today. Right, so the lighting's way better than that first tape. Definitely seeing that right away. Like some people are like, never wear white. I wear white in audition sometimes. I think that's one of those places where it's like, well, you know what, white does the character for me. And in this case, like the slightly loose tie and the white shirt, says FBI agent for me just fine, right? Maybe you throw a blazer over top of it and see what that does for you. But I'm assuming that Duke tried that here and was like, no, actually, this is the one that outfit that works for me.
Inspector K.
You up for it? Agent Weathers.
Where did you get that weapon?
Excuse me, I'm just gonna check with Agent Weathers before you continue.
Sure.
Yeah, it's Agent Myers. I've got an Inspector K from Canada here to interview the informant. All right, stop the interview. I said stop the interview. Don't answer that. You, out.
Right, like clear, authoritative. The reactions are solid. You've got a strong relationship with the guy you're talking to, and the person in the bed and the person on the phone. Right, different relationships showing up there. Again, without it looking like you are sort of trying to show us on purpose. If we got into workshopping it, I think my main workshop note for this one would be technical. Would be to get your reader has 2 lines in there, right, where you're sort of supposed to cut them off and say stop the interview, and for some reason the reader left a gap between those 2 lines. I assume because there's stage direction of some kind there. But what needed to happen was either you needed to say to your reader, hey, can you just run those 2 lines together, and I'm going to try and interrupt you, and then you could like literally cut them off before they were done their line, regardless of what it says in the script, because in this one, focus is all on you. Couldn't do that on set, but that's fine, because on set, they're going to have a close-up of them that they can use for that bit. But for your audition, if you're supposed to cut them off, if he's like asking questions he shouldn't be, and if you had had your eye line anywhere else other than the person talking, then that moment would have sold. But it read slightly off because you were looking at him, and then you had to do a like, now I'm startled by the thing that's happening, even though I'm already looking at you. And if you had just had your eye line somewhere else on the phone call, okay, I'm listening for an answer here. Then when he started asking questions, even though he said he wouldn't, just going up to him like, dude, what the hell? Stop talking, would have done the work for you technically there. Does that make sense? You just gave yourself a very difficult challenge, which is to be watching someone and then be surprised by a thing they're doing in real time. Very difficult to sell if it's just on you. And so that's the like technical change that I would make to the scene. But for a procedural show, I don't think you would want to go further, with the feels here, right? Like maybe we could do, so if you were exploring it, right? If we were taping it and you're like, great, I like it, solid, got a foundation, now what? And you're like, great, I got another 15 minutes with my reader, okay, now I'm going to try the, sort of even more aggressive one. Now I'm going to try the even more, what's the word, like, I'm just doing my job here and all I care about is rules, the version, see if either one of those like gives you a little pop somewhere in the scene, but at that point it just becomes about playing, where you're like, great, you've got what you want, you could send that one in. If you've got more time, then you're like, okay, I'm going to do a whole take of the scene with my focus just on this one piece. And then when I let that go, I'm going to see if it informs a line, a reaction. Main note on this one was just that one little technical fix. What stands out for you watching the history of tapes?
I'm surprised at how unsubtle I was from November 2021, I believe it was, you said.
Mhm.
My reactions, I just seemed over caffeinated or something. I'm not sure exactly why.
I think it's just that your attention was here a little bit then, like you were, which again, I think is a really normal part of the process.
Yeah, I definitely noticed a big change, and I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the and then in the last 8 weeks, what's been alive and interesting for you in terms of the work?
A number of things. To highlight one that really helped the most, perhaps, is when you were talking about that smile of mine. And to review, it's like, well, maybe that smile isn't my contrived acting. Maybe that's just my contrived person, And so in exploring that, having that pointed out to me, that was a big help in the last 8 weeks. And I've been progressively getting rid of that and seeming more authentic, I hope and believe.
I agree with you. And I also think that that's like a very vulnerable reflection, that impresses me, for you to sort of identify and be like, maybe this is something that was useful for me before in my life, and that's why it's shown in my acting, but that I can let go without sort of being attached to or making a story about. Easy to say, not actually an easy thing to do, especially if we're talking about something that is an unconscious habit, from life that is making its way into acting. So I appreciate you calling it out, in a way that is vulnerable. The something that Duke sent some thoughts in an email, and so I just wanted to read those for you here. He said, I have more confidence to create a better self-tape, even from a technical perspective. I completely agree there. He talked about the smile. I said, I have more confidence to fix script problems, better acting or even embellishing if the acting calls for it. Duke goes out for a lot of indie films, and that particular tool is, I think, a really useful one, when you're going out for indie films, where you're like, okay, oh, right, somebody's like made an error in the script here, or there's an omission. There's a spot where like there isn't enough information and I have to fill it in as opposed to just not doing. And then he said, I'll simply say I was a really bad self-taper. I didn't know how to do them myself. Acting became forever locked into self-tapes. I wasn't prepared physically or mentally to do them alone. I came from a world of theater and live auditions in studios, and that world did me just fine before the pandemic. I made X dollars in the 6 months prior and did a lot of student films. And then I was alone and had no clue about how to do auditions by myself. And so I think that we just saw that progression in the tapes, and again, I really appreciate sharing the arc of that, because I think that a lot of people are in that, where they're like, well, I know how to do the work, but how can I not have my attention on myself? Which when you're telling me stay at home, literally put the camera on yourself and look at it and figure out how to do it better. It's like a whole extra piece of skill set. And I think that the thing that Duke experienced here is a very normal thing to experience, which is like the immediate impact of putting the camera on oneself and knowing you're going to watch that later, is that the attention shifts from out here, which theater, auditions, the like familiar might be more familiar in the work, to part of my attention is suddenly here. And that's just, it takes a while to drill in the technical things so that you're like, okay, great. Now I'm not thinking about like, where's my lighting? Where are my eye lines? Where am I standing? And my attention is now available to go back out there, and to inform the work in that way. Is there anything else that you want to say about what's alive for you in looking at the work, Duke?
Well, I just feel more confident with it,
Yeah.
and this last 8 weeks has really helped with that a lot.
Great.
And so far as empowering myself to be able to say these things like, well, I can fix that technically, and I should, or I can fix the script. I don't have to be rigid, with keeping it this way, and also knowing that, as you pointed out, which I did not know, that everybody's going through the same problems with self-tapes to some degree, and realizing that all of it put together really helped me get grounded in myself and my work.
Fantastic.
Even though it's alien to me with having a camera right there.
Yes.
But I can do it now. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna throw you all in the gallery. Here we are at the end of 8 weeks. I'm gonna send out an email to everybody who's on the list. So if you're watching this at home and you're like, what? There's a list. It's at myfreeactingclass.com. You can sign up there. And the next time I'm doing one of these sessions, I'm gonna, which is gonna be September, I will send out an email there for folks who want to get involved. But right now, if there are any final questions, anything that you want to hit, and I can see Alex does, but I'm just telling everybody that like this is the time for that. Let's do that, and then we'll wrap up. Alex, yeah.
It's not a question, but I just want to give you credits for what you did the last 8 weeks and for pushing us to do this challenge. And I learned that consistency is way more powerful than intensity. Being able to find a script, learn a script, create a character every single week was so helpful for me to push my acting career forward. And I just want to give you a round of applause for doing this for us.
Yeah, it makes me happy. No, thanks, Alex. That means a lot. Question from Dia. Small question, why shouldn't we wear white? I think honestly, the thing about not wearing white is left over from less sophisticated camera technology. It used to be that if you wore white on camera, the camera would think, like the colors from everything would be like, whoa, because the white balance would like get confused by the shirt, and like everything would go way out of whack. And cameras are just better now than they used to be. Like it still washes you out maybe a little bit, but I don't think that the effect is strong enough to be like a hard no, never do it. the way that some folks are still sort of carrying. Right. And you can imagine that even if like on your cell phone, instead of tapping on somebody's face for the little like, this is the focus, you tapped on their shirt, then suddenly like the colors and everything else would go weird. It's just that it didn't used to be good at finding where the face was. And so it would just jump to the biggest chunk of color. Yeah. Christina.
Just like Alex, it's not a question. I just want to say thank you so much, Michael, for helping us these past 8 weeks. Like you really have helped us with acting and like coaching us how to do better. So I'm extremely grateful. You've helped with my confidence, camera presence, like improvisation, and I don't know what I do without you, honestly. So and for the past 2 years. So thank you so much.
I am so pleased by the way the session worked out. I didn't realize that we would sort of like accidentally have such fantastic representative examples of folks who are at different stages in the process. So I got exactly what I wanted, which was to get folks to see different stages in the process actually and hear your reflections on it from the inside, as opposed to just getting my reflections on it from the outside. And I think it's way more meaningful in terms of landing the process on people and them not feeling alone in it, which is what I experience from students when they're in a class. And I've wanted to bring that experience to people online. I'm still figuring out how best to do that. So thanks for being in the experiment with me. Well, I will wrap there if you don't have any more burning questions. And if you do have questions, and for the folks here and also for the folks at home, info@myfreeactingclass.com. Send me an email. These three can attest to the fact that I'm not the fastest responder, but I do get those emails and I do eventually respond to them. It's just that this is a labor of love free project, and sometimes I do get wrapped up in other life things. But those of you who want to come play with us in September, I encourage you to get involved. And in the meantime, join the mailing list. And I'm going to be mining past lessons and putting together resources, and I'll be sending out links to those. Bye, everybody. Thanks for a great 8
Have a
weeks.
nice one.
Thank you.
Bye.